manufacturing in the East African community. The other issues, I think the previous speakers have talked about it very nicely, but allow me to maybe emphasize just two of them. One, under protection, protecting. Protecting your goods is not bad. But putting stringent just talked about, that restrictive, very bad restrictive measures when it comes to production. Let me move quickly to preservation of raw materials and value addition. Everything that we talked about here can be made from within the East African community if we preserve the materials and we make sure that the material, the raw material, is in the position of serving our own manufacturing industry, rather than exporting the raw material and exporting it raw without any value added, and also exporting it outside of the community. While inside the community, there might be some countries that would need the same raw materials. All this has been talked about. Let me go to automotive industry, because we'll be having a presentation of automotive industry from someone from Suzuki, Isuzu. So automotive, it seems it is a problem. How can we promote this sector? How about having regional, collective, developed assembling plants, for example? Why should each one of the partner states have its own specific plant? We can have a regional, and then we can encourage a supply chain. It was said. And then once you have the cars assembled in the East African community, because manufacturing our own car at the community, I don't want to discourage anyone, but it's not for tomorrow. But we are thinking about it. But those assembled, can we make sure that they have, for example, one number plate? The same way, the fish, they have just one number plate. Do you know what is? It's the water. The fish comes from the water. If you show me a fish that does not come from the water, then I'm beaten. So all cars from the East African community, why can't they have one number plate? So that if you get to SADC, if you get to, I don't know, West Africa, with the same car, they say this car is from East Africa. I think I cannot say it better than what the CEOs said. With those just a few remarks, because I wanted to warm up the room a little bit, we have 4 panelists. I will call upon the first 2 to make their presentations. And the other two, I will call them after the presentations. They will be jotting down some notes so that they can make a feedback from the presentations that will be made by the other two. But for the other two, the Isuzu and then Mr. Ronald, I wish to request you to be straight to the point. Let us make the presentation straight to the point. Let us make sure that we finish this forum successfully, this round table successfully. And for us to finish successfully, we go straight to the point, and then we receive many feedbacks and comments as much as possible. On this particular note, allow me to call upon allow me to invite Mr. Ronald to come and make the presentation. And the presentation by Ronald will touch on impact and solutions to illicit trade in the EAC. We talked about so many things about it. That's the reason why I'm requesting that we be straight to the point. Ronald, the floor is yours. Jacob Arnold. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'll be very straight. I know after lunch what happens, so I won't spend much of your time. So apart from from the former speakers, we have heard a lot of challenges facing our region, but I'll basically address the issue, the impact and solution to illicit trade in the region. And for that, actually, I'll be I'll do some few examples from alcohol, but since I'm coming from tobacco, most of the examples will be coming from the industry. So what do we mean when we talk about illicit trade? In very simple terms, any practice or conduct prohibited by law which relates to production, shipment, receipt, possession, distribution, sale, or purchase of goods or services, and including any practice and conduct intended to facilitate such activity. That is a very simple definition of what illicit trade means. Now I'll jump into a few examples for our region, and I'll touch some few examples from alcohol industry, but as well as in tobacco. So when we are trying to understand this problem for our region, what is the magnitude of the problem as we speak right now? Sorry, please. Yeah. So when we want to assess the impact of illicit trade in our region, specifically for the alcohol industry, we are talking about, these are the data which can be found on the internet, and most of the data came from the study and survey which was done by Euromonitor Consulting. So in Kenya, we're talking about 56% of the alcohol which is consumed in the market is illicit. That is 6 bottles out of 10 bottles which are purchased. Nowadays, 6 of them is illicit. But how much is the government losing out of the illicit trade? That we're talking about 71 billion Kenyan shilling. That is the amount of revenue that the government is losing out of illicit trade. When you come to, this is an example of how much the problem is in Uganda, and this is on the cigarette or tobacco industry. So 29% of cigarettes smoked in the Ugandan market is illicit. And when you want to see the problem, the tobacco problem or illicit tobacco problem at the global level, this is the statistics. 1 in every 10 cigarettes sold in the world today is illicit. We are talking about 600 billion sticks and over 30 billion packs which are sold in the world today are illicit and illegal. That is 42 times the GDP for Tanzania and Ethiopia. We are talking about 40 to 50 billion USD. That is the government losses, the overall government losses out of tobacco alone. Why is illicit trade booming? You can see the main driver is the profit margin. On the left, you'll see that is the legitimate cigarette stick, and on your right, that is illicit stick. But how much is the legitimate stick comprised of? You can see for legitimate business operators, there will be a product cost, marketing cost, trade and distribution, and that small gray or purple, whatever color, that is the only profit margin that the legitimate business are making. The rest in green, that is taxes that is paid to the government. On your right, however, that is where the smugglers or illicit trade is. You can see the only cost that they have is product cost, smuggling, and sometimes illegal distribution. But the rest goes in their pockets. This is the main driver of why illicit trade is booming. And in our region, we have implemented several supply chain security systems that we are currently using. We have tax stamps that have been introduced in most of our countries, here in Tanzania, Kenya, Uganda, Rwanda, and the rest of the countries. But in most cases, these security solutions, supply chain security solutions, do not address the issue of illicit trade. In most cases, our governments are more interested to control production, but also to see how much, to get the right taxes from these manufacturers. I'm talking about the alcohol and tobacco. So if you can see, most of the supply chain security solutions, starting with authentication and tax or volume verification, which in most cases, now most of the East African countries, we are using tax stamps. They are mostly based on volume verification and tax verification. They do not, you cannot use this current system to address the issue of illicit. But when we have tracking and tracing, which will be the main area that I'm going to talk about, that is where solution comes on. What is track and trace? Track and trace, this is just a system of tracking and tracing tobacco products across supply chain. What do I mean? It enables record forward movement of legal supply chain. Tracing allows retrieval of full history of the product in the legal supply chain up to a certain point. What does it work? We use digital marking rather than paper stamps. Digital markings you cannot counterfeit. It's very easy, and nowadays we can see products which are counterfeit. And even tax stamps themselves are counterfeited. But when you're talking about track and trace, those digital markings, you cannot counterfeit them. But the process from the production, that is called, starting from marking, then it will go through scanning process and data storage. All process from production throughout the supply chain. There's a process of scanning, and every time you scan, there's a record that it goes to data storage or repository. That is a center or data storage, in most cases, controlled by the governments. So the government will have real-time information of production and even verifying how much is being produced. But again, they can track a product from the production level throughout the supply chain. And from that, it's very easy to deal with illicit cigarette, rather than the paper stamps, which in most cases you will find information about manufacturers, who is the country, and those are the basic information you can find. But when you're using a track and trace systems, this system can track a product from manufacturer throughout the supply chain, depending on how much you have decided to track that product. I'll give you a few examples in real situation, how does track and trace operate? So in tobacco process, that is an example. That is from the pack level. You'll be able to see the coding, the unique coding that is from tracking and tracing, that I was referring earlier, rather than the paper stamp. That is the starting point. That is where a pack is first received a digital code. From that, it will go to the carton. Sure, they are very short videos, but you can see that is the carton being given unique IDs. That is a digital one. From there, it will go to the master case. Here is where the master case is given a unique ID. That is a digital one, not paper stamps. And it goes all the way to the pallet. So basically, if a regulator, let's say the revenue authority wants to have the details of the product, they will have a detail from the pack level, carton, master case up to pallet. And that goes on throughout the supply chain. And the only thing that you need to do is only scanning. So why are we saying even this is the best solution for our region? It's not that we are inventing or proposing a very thing. No. It's already a system which are already used or implemented in other places around the world. In the EU and other places, we have seen they have already implemented track and trace system. And where does this track and trace system come from anyway? The WHO, in efforts to control tobacco product, they came up with this framework convention that required member states to adopt tracking and tracing system. And how? Is just to implement those systems in order to curb the illicit cigarette. Why? Coming from the cost perspective, other previous members have spoken about the digital as the future for our region. It's the same thing happening in tracking and tracing. It's all digital. The system is cheaper, is better, secure, and compliant. It cannot be counterfeited. The digital codes, you cannot counterfeit them. But paper stamps, we have seen they have been counterfeited. There's full and real-time government oversight. When you're talking about the first two supply chain security solutions that I mentioned, most of the interest of the government is to control the production and the taxes that are paid to the government. With the track and trace system, the government will have the oversight they want. Interoperability across the trade blocks. This system can work, can function with separate other systems. They can be connected together and work perfectly. Compliance with FCTC AI. I mentioned about where is track and trace is coming from. It is an initiative by WHO. The first treaty was, came into force in 2005. And now we are more than 40 member countries who have signed and ratified. I know Kenya is one of them, Rwanda, Tanzania, I know they're in the process of ratifying, but that is the way to go in order to curb illicit cigarette trade. Administrative and financial advantages. You're talking about more security, faster and effective process. But in the cost-benefit aspect, you can see the difference in cost from paper stamps and the digital track and trace UIDs. For instance, in Tanzania, currently we are paying $12.4 for paper stamps. DRC, $20 for 100 stamps. Kenya, 28. And Togo, 41. But when you are talking about the digital track and trace or digital trace UIDs, in EU, the average price is 3.91. Jordan, 1.79. UK, you are talking about 0.66. We can all see how cost effective are these digital systems. And here we are talking about track and trace. So I totally agree with the former speakers when you say that as a region we need to go digital, because digital is the future. Just in a nutshell, this is the process flow of the tracking and trace system. I know there's some technical details that we can offer to EABC or even our governments, yes, in a more detailed manner and even more expert that can assist in understanding this system and how they work. But in a very simple term, that is the process flow of tracking and trace. The first stage is code generation. From code generation, it goes to manufacturing process. And from manufacturing process, we go to movement of product through supply chain, and then reporting. And reporting, that is where the interest of the region comes from. Today we are advocating for information sharing. How can we protect illicit trade if we cannot share information? With track and trace and digital system, we can actually share information in one country and another. We can decide how much we want to share and how much we can even engage from one area to other. So the first process is purchase of the code. That is any member state within East Africa can choose their service provider. It is not mandatory for every state to use one service provider. They will do their own research and see the best service provider around this area, because there are plenty of service providers offering track and trace systems. But when you came to manufacturing, logistical movement, and even the national authorities, there are so many infrastructures or models that we can decide as a region. Do we want to give all the power to EAC? The EAC can maintain its own hub, but the national member state can also maintain their own hub. And they can even dictate how much information they want to see. But in all those circumstances, all the information about the product movement from the manufacturer throughout the supply chain will be captured in real time, and all the government will have oversight. So what we are proposing as a way forward for our region, we know it's very difficult for each country to work alone. And for that, we need a regional approach. The EU have already developed, and they have their own tracking and trace system. Why not us? We are not reinventing anything new. And for us, private sectors or manufacturers, we are ready to support our governments. If they need to learn to get a technical know-how on how this system operates, we are ready to do that. But again, when you're talking about digital track and trace system, we know, like I said, many African countries, we rely on paper-based system. But this focus on authentication, that is tax stamp-based and tax verification. So full digital track and trace is what is required in order to combat illicit trade. So as a region, tunaomba tushirikiane na tukiungana kuweka mifumo kama hii, kujifunza kwa wenzetu. And I know by now, COMESA actually they are in the process of developing the infrastructure for track and trace. They are going to track and trace. They are moving away from the paper stamps. The illicit is growing, the business is losing, and the government is losing. So we need a regional approach, and this is our request to EAC Secretary to in pushing our governments, and we are ready to support. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jacob. We need a regional approach, and one of the best solutions is the digitalization in order for us to trace and track all the illicit trade movement. Thank you very much for that. May I call upon the second presenter? Let me try to pronounce your name correctly. Madam Mr. Wanjohi Kangangi. Thank you. Mr. Wanjohi is going to present on automotive value chain in the region. We talked about this earlier on this morning. All the speakers alluded to that. But he's going to add some value on the discussions of this morning. We have to act. Thank you. Sasa tufanye. Thank you very much, Honorable Karera. I think we requested them to go and have a seat to follow the other presentation. Then they will reflect on that later on. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane, and good afternoon. Yeah, so like you heard, my name is Kangangi from Isuzu East Africa, but I'm here to talk a bit about the automotive sector. And I know it's in the afternoon and people are a bit tired, but I just wanted to point out that the automotive sector is one of the good news story. We have a good news story. We've walked the journey with the EAC. I think we started this journey. We used to come here in 1999 to talk about tariffs, making sure that goods that are produced within the region can get duty-free access to the region. And we've been able to do that. We've been able to, for vehicles that we assemble in Nairobi and source for parts from across the region, we are able to export to Tanzania, to Uganda. We are now just starting to assemble left-hand drive ones for DRC and Rwanda and Burundi. So a good news story. And I'll be very quick because I realize time is not on our side, but I'd just like to run a short clip of our line, our assembly line, just so you can get the concept of what we are doing, and then just touch on a couple of things. So please. So the reason we thought we'd share this very short clip is just to give everybody a concept of what we are saying when we're talking about local assembly. And the basic point is that the line we are running, the assembly line we are running in Nairobi, good?
Manufacturing and mechanics is largely a male-dominated field. Isuzu East Africa has a good number of ladies on the assembly line. The company has made bold steps toward gender inclusion, providing numerous opportunities for women as part of the Isuzu East Africa Workplace of Choice initiative. Once the engine has been securely dropped onto the chassis and all other components and accessories have gone through quality inspection, the chassis and cabin are ready to be joined together. This is often known as the marriage. The cabin is hauled up, aligned with the chassis, then lowered into place. The cabin is bolted onto the chassis, completing the marriage process. The truck is now ready to roll out of the production line.
Yeah, no, thank you. So that's good. So the thing is, the line, the work we are doing in Nairobi is the same as the line that we are running in Fujisawa in Yokohama, Tokyo. We encourage any of you that's in Nairobi to just pop around and have a look at our line. This is just our purpose statement. I won't dwell too much on this for purposes of time. This is our core values as a company: customers, relationships, excellence, and relationships include obviously working with teams like East African Business Council. Let's carry on. Then this is, I think you've already seen this, just a very brief overview of Isuzu East Africa. I think we can just move on. These are the products we sell. I'll just take a second to run you through this. You've seen the one that the Secretary General drove, and I think she's agreed to, we don't need to go back with it. That is the SUV. It's doing very well. It replaced what we used to call the Trooper many years ago. And this thing is now, last year was the top selling SUV in that category in Kenya. We've got the pickups, the D-Max. You've got the buses, and I think if you, for those who, a lot of the matatus, we call them the matatus. 90% of the matatus in Kenya are those Isuzus. But then also we've got various applications, trucks. We've got a lot of, a lot of trucks, from small, medium trucks to large trucks. And now we just recently took up the UD trucks from CMC. Now it's part of the family, and we're also assembling that in Kenya. And we've got a lot of after-sales offerings that we are giving. Let's carry on. We put this up just to show you our scope at the moment. So we've got our assembly plant, you've seen it in Nairobi, but we've got touch points everywhere across East Africa, and we are expanding. We are now looking at some place in Lubumbashi to just make sure that we are not centralized in Nairobi, that we are everywhere, and that the benefits of our work is touching as many people across the region as possible. Let's carry on. And then we've got our dealer here in Tanzania, Al Mansur Auto. They are right by the airport. I think you've seen them, and they are the ones that represent us in this market. We've got a different dealer in Uganda, a different dealer in Rwanda, but this is for Tanzania. This is our partner here, and is the one that's handling our products here. So in terms of the meat of what we thought we would talk about, other than just introducing Isuzu, is to talk about the Kenya automotive industry. And I think it started, I'm talking about Kenya, but it's really East African. It started in the 70s when the Kenyan government partnered with various multinationals to start, the idea was to start industrialization using automotive sector as a nucleus. So you end up with one plant was, and the government was a JV in all these plants. There was one at our plant on Mombasa Road. There's one plant in Mombasa and one plant in Thika. And the idea was, where you got those plants, you train people properly, but you also make sure that other people supply them with parts, with springs, with radiators, with components, so that becomes a nucleus for industrialization from that point, and obviously expand to the rest of the region. This worked quite well until about 1992, and I'll share this later, but I'll just try to, for purposes of time, move a bit quickly. So you can see the assembled vehicles were up to about 13,000 in the region, and then in 1992 or thereabouts, there was a liberalization, what the World Bank forced, calling structural adjustment programs. So the whole thing just went chaos, and everything that had been properly planned was shoved aside, and now we allowed, it just became chaos, and you can see the collapse that happened at that point. Since that time, there has been some recovery, and there has been some very good engagement with governments across the region. And go to the next one. This is a chart that just talks to that engagement. So the vehicles that are within the region, the red line shows the vehicles that come fully assembled, that are imported new. And the blue line shows the vehicles that are assembled locally. And traditionally, there used to be about 50-50, maybe more fully assembled coming in than the ones that were locally assembled. But we got very strong engagement with the governments, especially in Kenya, where they started, I think it was started by President Uhuru Kenyatta, this whole pride of, buy East African, build East Africa. Buy East African, build East Africa. We started seeing government preference for locally made vehicles. We started seeing a very strong focus to that. And you can see that intervention just changed. Today, about 80% of the vehicles are actually locally assembled. And everybody that's coming into the region today is thinking about local assembly. And there are many assembly plants now that have come up in Nairobi. There are some in Dar es Salaam, because that policy is beginning to take hold. Let's go on. So just a small story, and I'll not take long, but we've got in Nairobi, this we call it Enterprise Road. And those who know Nairobi, there is a place we call Biashara Street in town. Biashara Street used to be where traders did trade. You got something to trade, you go to Biashara Street. The idea behind Enterprise Road was to now start creating real value, start enterprises around that road. And the government planning, that time it was still in the bush, because Nairobi was still, CBD was very far, town was not, so was not going that far. But the idea was to use this road, Enterprise Road, to build enterprises, businesses. And it was started right at the beginning. Then General Motors, I talked about General Motors partnership, set up the assembly plant there with the government. The opposite side of Enterprise Road, opposite General Motors, they then Firestone did the same thing to assemble tires, and that one was with the government support. And after that, the idea was through that road, you find a lot of people Tetra Pak, other companies, just to build this as a kind of an industrial hub. And now that area today is actually literally called industrial area. It started that time, and I was just mentioning that because it's an interesting way of how government interventions can really have a big impact. Let's carry on. So I think I've talked about this a bit, but it just shows that that hubbing concept, those nuclears are now beginning to spread because the government has stayed, the government is taking this seriously. When you're talking about those negotiations on tariffs, the automotive sector is actually very well listened to. So you can see it's beginning to spread, and each one of these people that are setting up, they have a lot of support industries that then support them. So when you see one assembly plant in Tanzania, in Uganda, in Nairobi, that plant represents a lot of other integrated industries. And just one chart to talk through that a bit. Go to the next one. So this is, for example, for Isuzu, the value chain as we talk about it. So we've got the guys that supply us, the spring manufacturers, the seat manufacturers, the glass manufacturers. We train them, take some of them to Japan. We take our Japanese staff there to just make sure that their quality is the same as the quality you get in Fujisawa in Tokyo. And that's about 100 people that supply everything from chassis reinforcement members to seats to floor mats, all that. And then you've got the local assembly itself, which is the one I just showed you. Then the big item here is bodybuilding, because we usually just assemble the chassis. We just do the chassis, and then depending on what you want to do, we partner with someone that will put in either a truck body, a bus body, a firefighter body, and that's a big part of the business, and that's part of a big chunk of our local content. And we need to make sure that those people are very well trained. So we spend a lot of time on that area. And then we've got dealers and other institutions, banks, insurance companies. Each major bank and insurance company has a big, what they call asset finance division that has a whole team that specializes on financing these vehicles, insuring these vehicles. I've already talked about the 73 after sales points, touch points that across the whole region, and you saw that mark. But the other item that we are very proud of is working with the community on road safety to just make sure that they also have that impact on the community. So we estimate within our value chain, we are touching about 10,000 people directly, or including this, but also within our region, when you touch 10,000 people, each of those persons is also privately touching another 10. So it's about 100,000 in total. Let's carry on. Yeah, this is more of the local content across the place. Let's go on a lot, including in Tanzania. And I can just see my time is up. Let's go on. Yeah, let's carry on. Carry on. Okay, so I'll just invite my colleague here to take a minute to just go through this. And these ones, we are already engaging with the relevant teams, but it's good for him to run through it. Thank you.
Thank you, Kangangi. I'll try to talk as fast as Kangangi. I am Anthony Musyoki. I represent Kenya Association of Manufacturers, Automotive Sector. I'm the chair there. So these are our policy interventions. When we started writing this, I'd written challenges. Kangangi told me we have a lot of wins. We can't call them challenges. So the first thing we have to talk about is policy. So for the longest time, we've not had any policy. So as Kangangi said, in 2018, the then president called us and started a policy himself. And as the industry, we chipped in terms of finances. And I think, Bonavimal, you've mentioned it, that private sector has to chip in to this. Sometimes government is about, there's no budget. So this is one of the things we've done with private sector money and a policy in Kenya. There's currently a policy starting. They are doing a study in EAC, and the EAC policy will probably be coming soon. So the second thing was regulation. So we had to change the regulations to make it easy for people to come in, investors. And since then, we've seen about 10 more brands coming into country, automotive brands, into Kenya. You're seeing the ones in Tanzania, they're also pretty new. They're coming in because of those regulations that we are doing currently for EAC. So there are regulations in EAC that mirror Kenya, and what this means is that investors can come in. But those regulations, what they essentially do is that they give you this level 1, 2, and 3. You come in simply at level 1, you stay there for 2 or 3 years and move on to level 2, you invest more. So without the investment, you cannot come in. So there is a guarantee that someone will come in and do something a bit simple, they will graduate to more complex levels. Government procurement in Kenya, this is one of the most fantastic things. And as you know, if government is using anything, that thing will be used by everyone. Our MUX started off with our government, and it's really on the roads in Kenya. And as Kangangi said, last year we were top in that segment, SUV. So government procurement in Kenya, we have preference. Government doesn't do any tender that will give preference to imported vehicles over local vehicles. So that's a big harmonization of standards. This is where we probably need to support EAC. And our support is we can work on budgets on how to do, because harmonization of standard, one of the big issues is that there's no budget to bring the standards bodies in EAC together to form harmonized standards. That is the case for automotive. We have a situation this year in April with vehicles. Uganda just had their bus body standard implemented this year, and it clashes in some sections with the Kenyan one. So we got our vehicles blocked at the border. So it's something that it's practical. So we can assist where we can. If there is budget, then we can do it. If there is no budget, because from our side we're being told there is a budget issue. Financing is one of the big things. I think Stanbic was here, Doreen, and she talked about financial inclusion. Today in Kenya you have good financing for SMEs, MSMEs, but the problem is the interest rate. The interest rates are so high. So you're having interest rates at about 18 to. You go to the non-bank, the microfinance institutions. At one point there was a crisis in Kenya late last year, early this year, whereby we saw most of the microfinance being blamed for repossessions of boda boda, because they were charging about 5% per month interest rate, which was ridiculous. And it's because of the risk. So I think if we can get help there, we've seen a lot of inroads in this with cooperatives, SACCOs in matatu industry in Kenya. A lot of people are buying matatus because of financing, and it's because of the power of the SACCOs. So if we can work on that, I think it will give us a lot. So the last one is stay of tariffs. I think you mentioned it, Adrian. And the stay of tariffs for automotive is really sad, because you find that we are producing these vehicles, especially trucks and buses, whereby some countries, partner states, will stay taxes from 25% to 10% or 0%. What in essence that means, we cannot take our vehicles there to those countries competitively. And if you look at data, the data shows that the vehicles that are being imported are used. You see, it beats purpose. When you import used vehicles, full taxes for vehicles, because any model, and unless there is a particular model that is not being produced locally, that's when you can say that we need to do a stay. And that's it. We are very fast in Isuzu, in all things but one.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Jean.
Thank you, Isuzu team. Another round of applause to them. Thank you very much. Quickly, before even I sum up in just 1 minute, I wish to call upon Mr. Jacob, who presented the first, and then Mr. Wanjohi here today. And then 2 more panelists will join. Madam, the Deputy Secretary General, and then Mr. Is it Mr. or Miss? Delphine Kaze. Mr. Delphine Kaze. Delphine. Delphin. Oh, merci beaucoup. Thank you very much. Oh, okay. The first presenter presented on illicit trade. And actually what he was trying to share with us is how can we trace and track movements of goods and services under illicit trade. And then he came up with a proposal of adopting a regional approach in trying to do that, and also ensuring that we embrace digitalization so that the information is well captured and you can follow the flow of information to ensure that you track and trace. The second presenter, Isuzu, I think this is a very good case of regional, what can be a regional value chain. We know Isuzu is not only in Kenya, is not only in Tanzania, is not only in Rwanda or in Uganda. So it is in all those countries. So following the presentation, it was trying to show how regional supply chains can be encouraged for the region to ensure that there is value addition. Whether you are doing a CBD or CKD or SKD, value addition matters. So that's in the brief what all the presentations were about. Now, for the two new panelists, I want to ask new questions because I requested that they jot down some notes. I want them to give us feedback from the presentations that they received. And if there is any addition they would want to make on top of the presentation that were provided to us, so that they make those feedback. And then we follow. Allow me to start by Mr. Kaze to give us feedback. You choose any of the presentations that were made, and you give us feedback. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm from Burundi. I'm one of the board director EABC Burundi, and I'm very happy for these discussions and also the presentation already presented here. I've been so much touched by this thing of illicit trade, which is very terrible when you see the amount of money we are losing every year, either the government or the private sector. I think we need to move on with the solution, as many presenters and the panelists already mentioned. Now we are not going to say, let's consult. We need to take action. We see these things of tracking and trace. We don't have choice. Either we lose that money, we still use that money, or we decide to make sure we are improving things. For the Isuzu business, just we need to encourage them and say congratulations to them. This is a very good thing. And let me come once again for something that has been mentioned before about how we can create the value chain and then try to make sure some products are manufactured locally. A lot of people mentioned that in DRC we have some minerals, and I think for some other countries there are huge potential. For example, Tanzania and Kenya, those are countries that are near the sea, which even in terms of importing goods, that may be easy. But the problem is the same problem we already mentioned about barriers and those borders we create within EAC, where you find it's very difficult. We are like, now we may think that Isuzu is a Kenyan brand or it's assembled in Kenya, and not even think that it's EAC. That should be a pride for the whole EAC. As Burundians, as Rwandans, we should be proud of there is a Isuzu locally assembling plant as it is in Kenya, and then promote how if there is some parts that may be manufactured in some other countries, that would be a huge potential. But I have some questions regarding the workforce. When you see in Africa, we have young people and a high growth of young people. Yes, there are initiatives that are coming, but do we have qualified young people ready to work on those projects? Because sometimes, by the time I'm a manufacturer, I know how we struggle to find qualified people to work on those initiatives, especially in manufacturing. Suggest to all who are here, either the private sector or state partners, how we can put in place adequate education to make sure, yes, innovating, are bringing in initiatives, and we have people who can really work as the workforce, because sometimes workforce is a challenge for businesses. Also, there is a challenge of energy. As an investor in clean energy, I know how, especially in manufacturing, you will find the cost of product is very high because of the energy just component. We find even for some products, the energy is around 40% of the cost of the product, which is very, very difficult. And then we add the cost of transport. Now it becomes very, very difficult to be competitive in our region. But there is an opportunity about renewable energy. In EABC, I co-chair the sustainability subcommittee. And when you have statistics in Africa, a lot of clean or eco-friendly initiatives are promoted in East Africa, either for EV, e-mobility. When you see clean cooking energy, in Kenya we have plants for improved cook stoves, different initiatives about biogas, different, a huge potential in hydropower. So, but the problem, we are not attracting those massive investment to make sure we have enough energy to move on with our manufacturing. With the green industrialization, we need to make sure we adopt those kind of renewable energy. And maybe we can avail some platform to attract more climate finance, which may even lower the cost of interest on in financial institutions, because we know also in EAC we are struggling with finances to fund our initiatives. So maybe climate finance should be another opportunity to lower the cost of money when we are get loan to run those initiatives. So to sum up, let's make sure we have the workforce in EAC for solving the energy matter. Let's find a solution in clean energy, and then either Isuzu or other will be get more storage access region. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kaze. I think you summed up yourself, so I want to sum up anything else. But I wish to emphasize the two additional new points we just made on clean energy. You know, the cost of energy is very much affecting industrialization. So this is a new point that you just brought in that requires a bit of reflection on how we can deal with that challenge, the cost of the energy. And you also brought in the cost, the skilled workforce. We are talking about promoting manufacturing, and most of the programs that we are implementing, even the one of Isuzu that has been presented to us, require such skilled, highly skilled workforce. Are all the partner states at the level of providing such a highly skilled workforce? This is another point that requires a bit of reflection from ourselves. Thank you very much. Isuzu wanted to say something, but I will allow me to pass the microphone to the Honorable Deputy Secretary General, I know for sure she has a lot of things to share with us, as according the presentations that were given to us. And then I will come back to you, Isuzu. Thank you.
Okay. I have to hold it in a certain way to be able to use. Thank you very much, our moderator, Director JB. And I would also want to recognize and thank our presenters for such interesting presentations. And I will start with the Isuzu presentation. As you presented, it reminded me very much of this journey of Isuzu that I recall from many years back. And a lot of this story rotates around one gentleman who worked at that time at Isuzu. His name was Gerard Muli. I don't know if you know him. But Gerard, I think, and he should have listened to this, I don't know if he still works for Isuzu. He was such a persistent and consistent advocate for the automotive industry. He participated in each and every meeting, whether technical, policy, strategic, looking out for interests of the automotive sector. I'm not sure if there were interests of the automotive sector or Isuzu, but he was consistent. He was a very active member of EABC. He participated in meetings. He organized research evidence to back up any advocacy positions that he presented. He was selfless in terms of how he used his time. I'm saying all this because I think this is important for the private sector. If we can emulate what he did, we would have many good stories. And I think for me, it shows that public-private dialogue and advocacy, if undertaken consistently, can deliver good results. If we have these champions of industry in all the different sectors, we will have many more positive stories to tell. So I felt really, really pleased and proud that I was there at that time as a technical person, also involved and engaged. And many times he actually annoyed me and irritated me because he was persistent. You know, he was never satisfied with the basic. He always wanted more and more and more. So it's a very positive story that you told, and I hope that we can take away these lessons, that these kind of discussions and engagements, you as the private sector, when invited, you take up these responsibilities. You're like Mr. Vimalsha, you're like the vice chair, Mr. Carrera, you show up and you contribute and you give your time. That is what is going to deliver some of these key sectors in our respective economies. So I really, really commend Isuzu for this very good story. Some of the issues I probably will put forward for you to share is on the story of building the regional value chain. To what extent do we have suppliers that are in the other partner states? I got the sense that you have outlets where you're selling units, but do you actually have suppliers who are supplying glass from Rwanda and bringing it in? And from EAC, then we need to build a logistics pipeline for this kind of value chain so that we know this glass is heading to a factory or an assembly plant in Kenya, and we must have a pipeline that allows them to move this glass quickly. It's those kind of free-flowing logistics platforms that we need to create to be able to build a value chain. So I think I'd be keen to hear that, and then what do we need to do for us to create those platforms so that you get your raw materials in good time, produce the units at a reasonable cost, and be able to distribute them within the region. The second issue is on a regional automotive sector organization, I'm not sure if it exists, because we get, it exists, but I don't see the advocacy at a regional level. I see Isuzu coming to us, and then I see another company, Kira, coming with its own proposals, and many times they are not synced. They do not speak to each other. I would like to see more of that coming through, the association putting forward its advocacy position at a regional level. And so I'd be keen to hear that. In terms of the policy interventions, you've, I think, mentioned a lot of work that is in the pipeline, and we take away the need for us to fast track and get moving on these issues so that then these policies can be put to use and for the purpose that they have been proposed. The issue of climate, I think climate change has been addressed. And I have an expert on standards who will comment on the issue that you raised on standards. Then on the illicit trade, I actually sat and reflected on how much of that is happening, not necessarily for alcohol or cigarettes, but all these different, you know, smuggling across borders, and what is the cause? Because all the issues that you presented seem to be a symptom. There's some underlying issue. There's an underlying issue, and what is that underlying issue? Maybe for the cigarette industry and for the alcohol industry, maximization of profits by those that are involved in this. They have the muscle, they can be escorted, they have a protection. But then there are also these other smaller, you know, smaller illicit trade transactions that are happening. And all of those combined lead up to huge losses in terms of government revenue, safety. Sometimes we don't know what we are feeding our citizens, especially if these goods do not meet standards. Some of them might be expired. They might be laced with different chemicals. And some of the causes that I think I've jotted down, part of it, especially for MSMEs, those that cross borders, are the lack of information. They simply don't know the procedures. And why subject themselves to interview by a customs officer if it will be easier to just use a route and be able to get away with these transactions? It could be that even where the processes exist, they are complex. They are difficult to comply with. So again, that's an issue. There are issues around corruption. We must accept that that too is a problem. Lack of standards in some areas, tariffs which are prohibitive, although there's review processes for tariffs, but perhaps they're still very prohibitive for some particular sectors. Lack of organization in the industry, so it's easy to get away, because after all, who is going to be following me up if there's no organization? So there are quite a number of issues which I believe we can tackle one by one, especially for us as the EAC Secretariat. What then we need to do? We already have infrastructure in place. We have transparency tools that allow for provision of information. We have border officials that are sensitized. But I take away the need for us to do more. More fundamentally, I think the proposal that you bring to the table for a track and trace regional initiative, which I think would be gladly and willingly look into. We already, what occurred to me is we already have, and Director Customs will, I think, perhaps comment on this. We have a retreat for commissioners of customs that will be coming up in the next 2 or 3 weeks. This is a proposal we can already put to the table to say, you know, if you implement this initiative, it's going to enable you collect more revenue. Maybe that's a selling point for it, and then we can collaborate by inviting you to speak to this initiative to show how it could be initiated at a regional level, what kind of policy framework do we need. All these are issues that we can talk about. So I do see that as a huge opportunity that we could, together with EABC, pioneer, especially with some of the countries where it might be easier than in others, but I think it's a good thing to start. So I think those are a couple of comments that I had, but overall, very informative presentations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Secretary General. Once again, I won't be commenting on what you have said. You are my boss. But allow me to just stress the fact that we have a platform. We have a regional automotive platform. It was established by Stiffy and endorsed by the council. And now we are forming the membership. We wrote to partner states to share the names of the members. So moving forward, we have, I'm told we have only 15 minutes, 10 minutes for the audience and 5 minutes for the panelists. Feedback. Before I go to Suzuki once again, allow me to go to the audience and then get your feedback and the questions. And then we come back to the panelists. That way now Isuzu will ask the other questions or give the other feedback. Thank you very much. The audience, 3 questions or 3 feedbacks. Please, women and men.
Is it women now?
Yeah, yes. Okay.
Yeah, thank you very much, and thanks you, panelists. I have to hide my excitement on the subject because that's the only subject I know, perhaps. But my question is, I think, what is this called? This African continental thing. Automotive is supposed to be priority sector, isn't it? Yeah. Is under this, yeah. So, if that is the case, and I'm sure even as we integrate in the region, we should be moving in that direction. And I'm glad that the Deputy Director General has indicated that there is a regional automotive platform or something is being said. It would be good to know where we are, and some of us may want to participate, because if there is one sector that covers all fields of engineering, all of them, it is the automotive sector. So it is something that can pull us to along in terms of industrialization. There's nothing which is not in there. So it does. In Tanzania, we started in the 80s, we went up and down, and then I think we messed up ourselves, and now I can say the automotive industry in that sense is not there. We have some assemblies by some Chinese and all that, but I think it needs to be more organized and better systematized in order for us to gain something like that. Okay, so that's the thing. Now, my other question is, in view of the technology change, the very serious thing that we are moving away from the traditional internal combustion engine, I think I would be curious to know what Isuzu is doing in that direction. The EVs coming in, and therefore also. Third one is offer. I think in this meeting we should take the opportunity to register interest in producing specific components of this vehicle. And as we have been saying, regional value chains are the answer to proper industrialization. So those who are capable of manufacturing certain parts, we should also do that by what is it called? Harmonization, so that we don't all manufacture tires, we don't all manufacture batteries, we don't all manufacture small parts. And that. It would be good to be systematic and to be coordinated. Asante sana.
Thank you very much for honoring the time. We said we have to mix with the women. It's okay, you go for, but one should be a woman.
To hope.
Yes. They're tired, yeah?
I think the microphones are tired. My name is Philip Pande. I'm not a manufacturer, but I'm here in the sense of how manufacturing supports the entire ecosystem. And I want to relate this to the first discussions that we had. And this executive director started by remarking that the Gen Zs are looking for jobs. Now, motor vehicle assembly and its role in integrating the community and supporting the integration is such a powerful tool. And I was taken aback by a presentation by one of our colleagues here, I think related to Kenya Association of Manufacturers in the automotive value chain, where we have a conflict between East African nations on standards. Now, these standards does not just affect the movement of the actual goods. It affects the movement of labor. It affects the provision of inclusive opportunities. Relating that to a presentation somewhere last year in Nairobi, we realized that many manufacturers cannot cross the border because of the mismatch on standards or other East African countries not accepting standards from other neighbors. I would say a good example between Kenya and Uganda on KEBS and the Uganda Bureau of Standards. Now, when this happens, one industry that suffers is the youth ecosystem. One manufacturer in Nairobi is unable to run a graduate training program because they depend on export of their products to the East African market to generate funds for the graduate trainee program. Ideally, 100 young professionals miss out because of the barriers between trade in the intra-Africa, East Africa community. How are we able to address that? Not just to help the commodities move, to help the automobile industry move, but then look at it in the holistic nature of providing inclusive opportunities, because we know the size of the motor vehicle assembly industry with the potential of accepting and accommodating both TVET skills and university skills. And I say this from a point of one person that is trying to facilitate mobility of labor from across East Africa through the Corporate Career Academy. And one thing that we are doing as well is to provide a platform for the East African Business Council and members to come and discuss that at the East African Employability Summit, which is an annual gathering this year in Nairobi, so that we help provide these solutions on a policy perspective, just like we are doing today, but again, in a larger scale that would help our young people find opportunity across the border. Thank you very much, and I'm happy to take that discussion with members that are willing to discuss with that, especially employers. Thank you.
The third person, a lady, a woman. Okay, then we give you there, and then after the CEO, I would request Jennifer to come in for the regional automotive platform. I think she has more information and updated information on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Two questions. One for Isuzu and the motor vehicles. The coming in of tripartite and SACU coming in with duty-free vehicles coming into this region, how important is competitiveness to you and the entire assembly industry in East Africa? And what are the components that make you uncompetitive in East Africa compared to what is happening in SACU? For TCC, this track and trace, can it be applied to many other products where stamps are being used today, like drinks, a lot of other areas? And can it be applied on many other, areas, and would that be cost effective? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Jennifer, before we come back to the podium here.
Thank you very much, Director. So my name is Jennifer Gache, representing here the GIZ. So the EAC region has established Jumuiya. It's called EAC Jumuiya Automotive Platform, and it is a platform that monitors the progress of implementation in the automotive sector. And this progress is as a result of an action plan that was prepared for the automotive sector. And the platform has had its second meeting in June this year and is currently tracking the ongoings in the sector, including Isuzu is one of a very strong member of the platform, and Even the members here have been present. And currently, there are a number of issues that are impacting on the automotive sector, issues around local content, assembly, which is what the platform is considering. And it is expected that the platform will do another meeting in 2 months' time to gauge what is the progress with the emerging issues, because the sector is having a lot of potential. I think a car has almost 10,000 parts plus spares, and also there is the motorcycle and the batteries, which all form part of the automotive sector. Thank you. The value chain.
Thank you very much. Jennifer is one of the industry experts at EAC, seconded by JZ to EAC. Okay, now that is a woman, please take the microphone.
Okay, thank you. So I think this goes to Jacob as perhaps a suggestion. So I'm thinking with the track and trace system that you have presented, if I look at it and I look at the elephant that we've been having across East Africa, that is the ETS cost, I'm thinking that may be a solution to what we have always been advocating for, you know, with the government. So I'm saying, I think for me, this is the first time I'm hearing about it, and I think it's a very good solution. So I'm saying instead of, you know, like TCC doing it alone, is it possible for you to join hands with us and maybe other private sector if that track and trace system is going to be applicable to other products? So that as together, if we go with this and say this is what we want as, you know, alcoholic manufacturers, because we might not face such a big chunk of counterfeit or contraband as Serengeti based on the premiumization of the products that we import, but I know my counterpart TBL faces a great of that, but I know our sister company in KBL faces the same problem as you have explained, like 6 out of 10 bottles that are consumed, 6 of them are illicit products. So I'm thinking, how about we join hands at the private sector in East African community and try to, you know, go for it as one, because I'm thinking it's a solution for what we have been always advocating for. So I'm just throwing it out there.
Thank you very much to our panelists now. Isuzu, 1 minute. Feedback.
Okay, so I just want to make a couple of responses to some comments made, very provocative and insightful. One question at the beginning was about skills. So I think someone raised the issue about when you get into manufacturing, do you have enough skills? Our experience is that the skills level is actually extremely high. So we hire at Isuzu East Africa, we take on about 20 to 30 graduates every year in engineering just to train. And we started off thinking we'll get maybe guys with second class. We are now, we shortlist and fill up the slots with first class graduates every year with the engineering, that kind of engineering. So those Gen Zs, once you train them properly, we take them to Japan, they become extremely good. So the skills are actually more than the need, if you know what I mean. The skills issue, there could be a bit of tweaking required, a bit of training, but the skills are there in abundance across the region. This year's cohort includes one guy from DRC, actually, Hastings. So we are trying to make sure that we do that across the region. The other issue that was raised was around the regional value chain. I think that was by the Madam Director. And it's good, the comments you made about Muli, very, very good. I'll pass them on to him. But the regional value chain is something we are working on. Like now we've got a bus bodybuilder in Uganda, Metu, that we are working with, and he's doing some really good bus bodies. There is some cranes we are trying to start assembling in Tanzania for Tanapa here. So we are trying to do that a lot. The only thing is, I think as a team here that wants to nudge the industry along that line, we need to have a conversation around making sure that when you build a vehicle that is representative of the whole region, there is a bit of an incentive, because logistically it's a bit more difficult. So I think if we could have some kind of incentive for people to not just get everything done in Nairobi and ship everywhere, that there's an incentive if that vehicle has some parts from Rwanda, some parts from Burundi, it would help in the long term. And I think we should have that conversation. I think you've made Madam Director, you've made a good point about making sure that as automotive, we align our asks to avoid causing confusion and to avoid appearing like what we're asking is just vested interest. So I think the KM will take that up. The question you raised about ICE, someone asked, I think the engineer there about ICE. Last year we attended the Tokyo Motor Show, which is like the global, it was in November. It was a global platform for every automotive globally, showcasing the latest they've got. And the impression you've got today, based on current technology, ICE, what you want really is clean energy, not necessarily ICE. So clean energy today, based on today's technology, works very well for border borders, for passenger cars, and a little bit for pickups and small trucks. When you start getting bigger trucks, it might be better to look at fuel cells and biofuel. And Isuzu is in all that spheres, but we tested a light truck whose battery is like 700 kilograms. Charging that takes about 12 hours. So there's still a bit of research going, but we are there. And but it's good to be conscious that there are 3 ways to achieve clean energy, not to get completely focused on just one, because also it's possible that the breakthrough might come in the other one, and you've invested so heavily in infrastructure for one. Last is the issue about competitiveness, and we could get on and on and on about that, but the biggest item is logistics in our region are very expensive. We flew with him last night from Nairobi to Kilimanjaro. I think we were paying about 120,000 shillings. If I fly from Nairobi to New York, I'll pay about 80,000 shillings. So you can just imagine, those logistics are very, very expensive. Cost of power is very high. So I think as that conversation is going on, we need to be conscious that there are some disadvantages we face operating within this region that need to be taken into context when you're doing that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Kaze, there was just one comment on skilled labor. Do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, what he's saying is very good and it's encouraging. I think when you compare bringing people outside of the EAC coming to work in EAC, there is a cost that's go with it. That even increase the cost of those products, but we are working on leveraging the workforce locally. It's a very good thing, and that's great hope. That thing, I may even encourage other manufacturers, not only Isuzu, that thing of working with universities, academics, to bring those brilliant students and then giving them trainings like they're doing in Isuzu. Even every 10 people, 20 years, give them capacity building. That is what we need in EAC. And I think when they will be expanding their business to other state partners, that is a hope for our manufacturing sector in EAC. Just let's encourage other manufacturers within the EAC to do so. Also, I think that we leverage the standard of our product. Also, something that go with that, just not only train the workforce, but also focus on advanced technology. I think, yes, there is that lack of workforce, but also to be competitive in Africa, even the whole world, it's not only about the workforce, but we be in need of highly advanced technology. As you know, we be always competing with Asia, which is not very easy, but those stories we are hearing in this room is very encouraging. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ikaze. Jacob, how can we extend the press to other partner states if it worked for Tanzania? Thank you.
Thank you so much, and thanks, Neema, for highlighting the need for a joint force to make sure that we implement throughout different segments. Like I said and I mentioned earlier, the track and trace concept came from the WHO Framework Convention on the Tobacco Control. However, as you can see, the only thing that we are advocating here is for a digital solution that we can extend beyond what the government is actually aiming at currently. Because right now, if you can see the water bottles that we have, they have the digital codes. but you cannot find in tobacco or other alcohol beverages. But with track and trace, this system, or there are service providers across the globe who can actually build this system that could resemble track and trace. So it is very possible to build track and trace system across different categories or industries. So yeah, the only challenge, or the main challenge that we are facing right now, is the readiness of our governments. In most cases, there are claims that the paper stamps, that is tax stamps, they are the most secured. And most of our government believes so. But when it comes to addressing the issue of illicit, it's almost impossible. The stamps itself, they can be counterfeited, but you cannot track the product from the manufacturer to the end user. And the good thing about track and trace, the system could be complex, but as a starting point, as a region, we can agree how much we want to track our products. Do we start from manufacturer up to a wholesaler, or even up to the ending point to be a retailer point? That is the decision for us to make. So we can identify any diversion that could happen in the market. But in terms of building solutions or track and trace, yes. And I don't know if some of you have heard about the blockchain technology. Yeah. Those are among the solutions that even the beverage industries are currently developing. So that could suit the alcohol industry and the like. But as far as the track and trace concept come from, it is from the WHO convention. But what is needed in track and trace is just for this region, just to agree on the minimum requirement as a starting point. And what we need to aim is just to track and control the supply chain security. We do have security, supply chain security right now, as in paper stamp, tax stamps, but in most cases, it does not address the illicit issue. It needs to be the products, whatever, we need to have the full control on the supply chain, rather than just aiming at verifying our production and how much tax is paid by the manufacturers. I hope that clarifies.
Thank you very much for that. Now to put a close to this session, DSG has requested me to say something on her behalf when it comes to EVs and the critical minerals. And then on one of the freedom of movement of labor. On this one, we have one education area in the East African community, which means all the certification process in the high schools, universities have been harmonized. So this is not a problem. If you have a certificate from Uganda, you can move across and go to Rwanda and teach in one of the universities, or be given a job as you could be given a job in your own partner sets. When it comes to EVs, yes? Sorry? Yes, the one education area we have. That one I don't know, but I witnessed the signing. Yeah, I don't know when it started. It might be because this is. How long it takes to achieve one, and remember how many we have to do. So I think it started when Lucy you were here, right? Lucy was here 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. That's when it started. We have achieved one now. Yes. So the other might take. We are struggling with others. 60 years. We will not see. Everybody in this room may not see. Thank you. Yeah, this is a take home. And we shall push the EVs, electric vehicles, and where we are required to, for clean energy, of course, to have, to supply batteries electrical batteries to electrical vehicles. And then how does it reflect in the region? What are we doing? We need to ensure that we look at those critical minerals, the minerals used to get the electrical batteries, and add a value. And if we can produce the electrical batteries from the region, that would be a very good value chain that we can, supply each other. Last one, single tourist visa. This was in the morning, but I just want to indicate that all the countries except Tanzania, like it was mentioned this morning, have already joined the East African single tourist visa. South Sudan, DRC, and Burundi joined very recently, and they are only waiting for ratification. So we are waiting for Tanzania. Maybe they have promised to come up with a good news in the next Sector Council of Tourism and Wildlife Management, and hope that will be the good news, and it will respond to our aspirations. Thank you very much. On that particular notes, allow me to please join me to give a round of applause. It was very insightful. I really appreciate your engagement, and this will go a long way in helping us to shape as we try to promote the manufacturing sector. Thank you very much. We're going to have a photo.
As we have the group photo, allow me to thank Jean for moderating this very insightful panel discussion. And the panelists, thank you so much. In fact, I hate one question at immigration. How long are you here? For how long are you in East Africa? For how long are you here? 2 days, 3 days? So for our closing session, I invite EABC to handle the closing session. you're welcome. Sorry, we have a key. I wish I knew the vehicle. I would just drive home. But the owner of the key?
Okay, thank you very much. I think in interest of time, I will be very brief before actually I invite my director from Uganda, Fiona. I think you will come. But very briefly, I would like to thank the EAC Secretariat, led by Her Excellency Veronica Nduva, Secretary General, for being with us until 3 o'clock. But also, I would like to thank the Deputy Secretary General, all directors from EAC, for being with us all the time. I think we have achieved a lot of milestone. The commitment actually we get the Secretary General is showing that together, public and private sector, we can move this integration in the right direction. We have agreed now to go national because we know the issue are at the regional level, but when it's come to implementation, are at national level. But also before the issue supposed to agree at national level, we know the national actually had to do the consultation. So it is our duty as a private sector to start influence our policymaker at national level. Once they come at the regional level, at least they have our views, and our view is supposed to be the regional one. So I'm supposed actually here now to invite our director who will close the meeting. Karibu sana.
Can we give a big hand clap to our acting SG? Since Her Excellency is not here, I'll address her deputy in her stead. Our chief guest and her deputy, Ms. Annette Mutawe Semwemba, the deputy SG, Customs, Trade and Monetary Affairs of the East African Community, the Honorable Member of Iala Parliament, Honorable Sadia, Mr. Dennis Carrera, Vice Chair and Past Chairman, East African Business Council, Mr. Vimal Shah, Past Chairman, East African Business Council, Mr. Adrian Njao, our CEO, acting EABC, board directors present for the EABC, Ms. Flavia Businge, Director Customs and Trade, East African Secretariat, East African Community Secretariat, Monsieur Jean-Baptiste Havugimana, Director Productive Sectors, EAC Secretariat, our partner, Ms. Estela Ariada, GIZ Component, Lead Trade in Services, our sponsors, Isuzu East Africa, Stanbic Bank, Tanzania Cigarette Public Limited Company, Group ACE, ECA, Tanzanian Breweries Company Limited. EAC officials, EABC Secretariat members present, the media fraternity, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry for going through everything, but since I'm closing, I thought I'd say thank you to everybody. I see someone from the East African Court of Justice here. Can you please wave to us? Yes. Your Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to take this opportunity on behalf of the East African Business Council and all members present to thank Her Excellency for gracing this round table. Indeed, our theme, boosting intra-East African trade and investment, unlocking barriers and leveraging opportunities, has been the theme that has gone through everything today. I would like to express our gratitude to you, Your Excellency, for honoring our request to make this roundtable a topic, and I'd like to thank the Secretariat of the East African Community and the Secretariat of the EABC for making this possible. I'd also like everybody to pat themselves on the shoulder right now and give themselves a big hand clap for being part of what I hope will be a historic conversation that is going to start us on a new page. And what is this new page? Being the change that we want to see. We're no longer going to do mdomo mdomo, right? We're going to do, my Swahili is terrible, action. So as VC Dennis stated, you're meeting us in the first 2 months of your tenure indicates very positively the kind of leadership we should expect from you. Your Excellency, thank you for accepting to meet us half yearly. I think that's a big promise that we should clap for. And we commit as a secretary, as EABC to prepare adequately, first of all, in order to make the most of these meetings. We should not be found like those brides that did not have oil in their lamps when the groom came. Your Excellency, during the lunch break, you also committed to come and do in-country chapter visits for the public sector and private sector. And one of the things we agreed is that when she's already done one for Nairobi, we also agreed that when she comes to our countries, we are going to make sure that policymakers are in the room. So let's also give that a big hand clap. We commit to creating a clear way forward for this meeting that will be communicated by the Secretariat, because one of the things that has come out of here is let's not just have conversations. One of the things we'll do differently is we'll have a task list. We've talked about the automotive sector, we've talked about many sectors. There'll be a to-do list that we should share so that the next meeting we can hold ourselves accountable. Madam SG, I would also like to request that you appoint somebody from the SG Secretary, from the EAC Secretariat who can work with the EABC Secretariat to pursue and make sure that these tasks are actually followed. We also commit, given her kind admonishment, to ensure that regulators and policymakers are in the room going forward in all our dialogues to come to ensure balanced and productive outcomes. Thank you, Madam SG, for your clarion call to the private sector to do things differently in order to achieve different results. Someone said it is foolishness to do the same things over and over again and expect different results. Thank you for agreeing to restore the seat of EABC back at the summit. That's a big one of ministers. We are encouraged to hear that you wish to create a 360-degree approach and that you're here, as your name says, to listen. We believe that your determination and laser focus will help us achieve some of the progress that we're fighting for. During the launch of the vehicle, we noted that the East African community in all its 25 years has made a lot of progress. And I think Isuzu demonstrated that very clearly. Although we are still complaining that their prices might not be very friendly still. But I think that we also, I think in these meetings, need to document the progress that has been made. As EABC, we would like to commit that as long as you give us the information on the progress made on the different protocols, we'll be able to disseminate them and communicate them further. We also pledged to communicate to our various ministers of the East African community what has come out of this meeting, so that later on when they're meeting as cabinet secretaries, there'll be our meetings and our thoughts will resonate with them. We look forward to working with you in the celebration of the 25th anniversary year of the EAC. We need to make it a year of real progress. Allow me to thank all our fantastic panelists. Can we give them a big hand clap? The keynote presenters, the secretariats for EABC and EAC, and the Fourth Estate, who without them, the rest of the membership of private sector would not be watching this right now. Allow me to offer a special thanks to our key sponsor, Isuzu East Africa, Tanzanian Cigarette Public Limited Company, Stanbic Bank Group, Ace Eka, Tanzania Breweries Company Limited, for your support. Without, you have actually put your money where your mouth is. Is that what they say? Thank you so much for funding this. There's no development in any country that hasn't been led by private sector. Thank you for leading from the front. Notably, I'd like to take this opportunity to recognize and thank the work of the German Development Corporation, GIZ, for making this roundtable possible and for their continued support and cooperation in fostering regional economic integration through supporting the East African community private sector participation in continental and regional integration processes. I'd also like to pledge the commitment of the EABC to partner with the Secretariat in deepening this integration process. We have discussed many, many things, and I think what I'm saying today is that the verse that speaks in our anthem, in the East African community anthem, that says our unity is our strength, is the clarion call today. Our unity is our strength for God and my country. I hereby take the huge honor of declaring this meeting closed, and I hereby dismiss you.
Adrian is consulting in regard to the cocktail, but what I'm sure of, there's tea outside.